Good morning, everyone. Focus Daily. Today, we're going to begin this show a little different. We're going to talk about how God's grace is giving us all an opportunity to redeem ourselves. But first, we must find out the truth. And the truth is, we've all fell from grace. We've all became a part of this democratic demonic system through things such as income tax, birth certificates, social security number. By registering at birth to be a part of this system, as the Bible says, we'll be cursed as we come in and cursed as we go out. But the good news is, through Jesus Christ, through the ransom he paid, we are all able to be saved. But we must come home. We must once again learn the laws and decrees of the Father, the Creator, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And it's through him that I am being sent with this truth to make it all so. All right, everybody. The Income Tax Act. So, through things like the birth certificate system, the Social Security system, the income tax system, we were all registered and officially became affiliates of the company, the Virginia Company, the Lords of London, the banking empire. Each state is technically an individual bank, an individual company that registers its citizens to be a part of this democratic demonic system. The time has come, though, for us to awaken, folks. It's time for us to come back home. So today we're going to delve a little bit into the income tax system. And yep, time to read. New intro I've been working on. But we're going to deal with the birth certificates and show how it all intertwines into one demonic ball of confusion and hell on earth, which we must free ourselves from. The time is soon coming when we all must break free from this system. USBirthCertificates.com. The history of birth certificates might not seem like much, but it marks a vitally important milestone in the country's development and growth. Birth certificates are with you from the first day of your life. However, despite this seeming longevity, the life story of the birth certificate only began recently. We're going to get back to that. Let me take you to a verse in the good book. Do a little real-time research. Going in Deuteronomy 28:29. Deuteronomy 28:29. Open up your books, people. Let's get to it. This tutorial. I'm not the teacher. I'm just the tutor. Getting y'all ready for when the real teacher arrives. Stay tuned, y'all. But first, we must learn how to focus daily. All right. Speaking of focuses, I might have to look up that Bible verse that I just found. What the? All right, Deuteronomy 21. Bear with me, folks. This is real time. Hopefully everyone has a great day, evening, afternoon, weekend. And hopefully more and more people show up to receive this truth while we have an opportunity to receive the truth. Because once destruction ensues, it might be a little too late. Okay, yeah. Check that out again. All right, here we go. When such a person hears the words of this oath, and they invoke a blessing on themselves, thinking, I will be safe, even though I persist in going my own way, they will bring disaster on the waters, land, as well as the dry. The Lord will never, wait a minute. I'm going to go ahead and read this. The Lord will never be willing to forgive them. His wrath and zeal will burn against them. All the curses written in the book will fall on them, and the Lord will blot their names from under heaven. The Lord will single them out from all tribes of Israel for disaster, according to all the curses of the covenant written in this book of law. Your children who follow you in later generations, and foreigners who come from distant lands, will see the calamities that have fallen on the land and the diseases with which the Lord has afflicted it. The whole land will be a burning waste of salt and sulfur, nothing planted, nothing sprouted, no vegetation growing on it. It will be like the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, Adama, Zeboiim, which the Lord overthrew in fierce fire. All the nations will ask, why has the Lord done this to the land? Why this fierce burning anger? And the answer will be, it is because this people abandoned the covenant, abandoned the laws of God, the covenant of the Lord, the God of their ancestors, the covenant he made with them when he brought them out of Egypt. They went off and worshiped foreign gods and bowed down to them, gods they did not know, gods he had not given them. Therefore, the Lord's anger burned against this land, so that he brought on it all the curses written in his book. In furious anger and in great wrath, the Lord uprooted them from their land and thrust them into another land. Okay. That's speaking of what happened when we don't obey the laws of the Lord. Good. That was good. That brings our attention more and more on this truth that I'm presenting. This is our opportunity to break free from those curses and to receive our birthright, receive our land back, these United States of America. Okay, we're going to start right here. Curses for disobedience. However, if you do not obey the Lord your God and do not carefully follow all his commands and decrees I am giving you today, all these curses will come on you and overtake you. You will be cursed in the city, cursed in the country. Your basket and your kneading trough will be cursed. The fruit of your womb will be cursed. We're getting into the birth certificate situation right here. And the crops of your land, and the calves of your herds, and the lambs of your flock. You will be cursed when you come in, and cursed when you go out. All right. Now let's get to the facilitators of these curses. Only by the will of the Father. The thing is, he wants us all to obey his word, to obey his laws, to obey his commands. It's that simple, people. It's not about whether you're good or bad. You know, we're all bad. We've all fell short of his glory. But according to his will, All he expects us to do is do what he say, follow his laws and follow his decrees. And his son, Jesus Christ, was an example of following his laws and decrees. It was him himself, when being referred to as the good teacher, who corrected that person by saying, no one is good. So we all have fell from grace. But let's get back to this freedom that I'm bringing, this truth. The history of the birth certificates might not seem like much, but it marks a vitally important milestone in the country's development and growth. Birth certificates are with you from the first day of your life. However, despite this seeming longevity, the life story of the birth certificate only began recently, barely 100 years, a couple of grandmothers ago. To explore how this came to be and how they grew to become an essential vital record in America, we're going to get into this article. How did birth registration work before a birth certificate? Birth records have been kept by governments around the world for thousands of years. This was primarily done to ensure authorities had a clear idea about their production output and taxable population. It's all about the Income Tax Act today. Here we go, pointing into it, how it all ties in together. However, while birth certificates and other vital records like marriage and death certificates have been collected by governments for a long time, birth certificates are still a relatively new phenomenon. Before birth certificates were made the norm, information on birth were kept in church records. When we was growing up, everybody had a Bible in their house, and inside the front cover of the Bible, it had a family tree, and your name was written there in the position that you fell in within that family tree. So, as little as 100 years ago, each of God's children had this biblical record of lineage. But during the late 1800s, early 1900s, all the records were destroyed. All the books were burned. Fahrenheit 451, 541, whatever the name of that book is, those are the books that they were speaking about. All the reference and all the records that allowed the children of God to claim their birthright. Through systematic genocide, oppression, and Holocaust tactics, we were separated from our birthright. Now it's time for us to come back, though. Okay? Before birth certificates were made the norm, information on births were kept in church records. However, this was not a formalized process according to them, and there were no laws mandating when and how exactly a person should be legally recorded. They began to register people. Matters were also complicated by the nature of giving birth in older times. Complicated because you was either a rightful owner or you were a foreigner. Now they are starting to try to melt everybody together in order to bring themselves out on the other side as the owners of what God specifically gave to his children. Unlike today, most children weren't born in hospitals, and unfortunately, many didn't survive infancy. This meant that some records for people born at the time simply were not kept at all. When were birth certificates first used? Okay, consider how far back birth records go. It's a surprise that birth certificates only start appearing around the middle of the 19th century. In 1853, the United Kingdom centralized and formalized its birth record keeping. Here we go. The beginning of our reclassification. It was the first country to do so, and eventually other nations would start adopting similar methods. There were a few reasons having standardized birth records became beneficial for countries, including documenting large waves of European immigrants, registering, reclassification. The Titanic that sunk in the Atlantic, full of immigration, whether it be French or Haitian. Anyway, documenting large waves of European immigration across the Atlantic from the 19th century onward, getting a better understanding of population demographics, monitoring national public health needs. The U.S., however, was a bit different. Instead of a central system for collecting birth information, individual states collected their own records. It became a product of the state. Cursed when you come in, cursed when you go out. There was no federal requirements for them to do so. However, and no standard way of recording birth. It wasn't until 1902, Walter Plecker, when he brought in his demonic institution, the Department of Health, the Department of Vital Statistics, which led to the ability for them to tax us, to tax our souls for even existing. It wasn't until 1902, however, that the United States introduced a nationally regulated process at a federal level. This was overseen at first by the Bureau of the Census. At this point, a standard form was produced for registering births in each state, although state governments still had overall control of the issuance of birth certificates, and they still do to today. So from the moment you're born, you become a product of the state. You belong to the state. So much, in fact, that if they wanted to come remove you from your parents' hands and arms, they have institutions such as CPS that'll come rip your child from you, whether you like it or not. Do something that they don't consider beneficial to their system and let them find out about it, and you'll find out how much control the state actually has over our souls and our existence. We were trapped within a curse for not following the laws and decrees of the Father, of the Creator. Once again, though, the good news is, though, through the sacrifice that Jesus Christ made, he paid the ransom to free us. Soon he will be coming to collect us. Excuse me. But first, the truth must be known. A little bit more to go. 1902 through 1946, increasing government oversight of birth data. Excuse me. During the first part of the 20th century, the federal government took on a much greater role in collecting birth records. However, the documents issued back then didn't quite look like birth certificates you'd recognize today. A lot of data you'd normally find on a modern document, such as a standardized birth certificate number, simply didn't appear. The older files were only used to collect rudimentary information about the child and their parent, mainly names, identification, and family lineage. So when immigrants arrived, they could receive these names and replace the children of God. Where are all the black people today? We're speaking about it. They were replaced by using these systems of registration, these institutions of registration, health department, vital statistics, birth certificate, DPS, blah, 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 tax, this, that. Many families still had births at home instead of in the hospitals too. As a result, children simply weren't correctly recorded. Some managed to avoid being trapped in this system. But that's something you have to read your Bible to understand. 1946, birth certificates are regularized in America. The issue of patchily recorded birth data would finally come to head in World War II, during a Great World War, where they were able to ship millions of Afro-Americans across seas to their death, all the while bringing in immigrants and giving the immigrants Johagenstein, Gorbachev, Turkoil, Dragonovich, last names like Johnson, Williamson, Washington. And you look at these Germans, Italians, French, gypsies, and you wonder how they have American names and they originate from areas where they didn't even speak English. Here we have it. We pointed out through the vital statistic, birth certificate, health department system. At this time, ammunition factories and other defense projects were creating thousands of new jobs for citizens. We'll talk about the citizenship later. However, to take advantage of this, you had to be able to prove you were a U.S. citizen. This presented a problem to around 43 million Americans who had no way of proving their citizenship status, despite being born in the United States. While news media encouraged holdouts to get registered, the demands of World War II slowed this process. Finally, in 1946, as part of a drive to improve health policies and the welfare state, the Office of Vital Statistics became responsible for birth certificates. This would have oversight on how birth data should be recorded, while the states would be responsible for keeping records as before. Well, that's it for today, folks. Hopefully you had your discernment hats on. Hopefully you're able to see and hear this truth that is being presented. Until next time, Focus Daily, y'all.